And AMTOI Dialogues over the past 1 year has gained tremendous popularity. Thanks to none other than our own very active Vice President, a master in his own right with his great sense of humor. So this year, to top it, we have a very, very distinguished guest who will join him on our AMTOI Dialogues this evening. So over to you, Mr. Master, to give the introduction and start the dialogue.
Thank you, George. Thank you very much. Mr. Sivasailam, once again, congratulations on this prestigious award. I can only say it is from one stalwart to another. Welcome to AMTOI Dialogues. It's a pleasure having you on board with us. As our president rightly said, you have been a very erudite speaker. You say you shoot straight from the hip. So I have some tough questions for you, but I know that you will answer them very, very well. I will actually be doing injustice by introducing you to our industry members, but protocol demands that I have to say something about you because you're so well known. You're part of our family. So welcome, Mr. Sivasailam, formally, who is currently an administrative member of the Karnataka State Administrative Tribunal, Bengaluru. Mr. Sivasailam holds a bachelor degree in mechanical engineering from Delhi College of Engineering, University of Delhi, an MBA from the Faculty of Management Studies, University of Delhi, a master's in social policy in developing countries from the London School of Economics, and a postgraduate diploma in intellectual property rights from NSIU Bangalore. He joined the Indian Administrative Service in 1985 and superannuated in April 2020. Mr. Sivasailam last served as Special Secretary, Logistics, Department of Commerce in the Government of India. Prior to that, he served as a Special Secretary in the Department of Telecom in the Government of India. His earlier tenure in the government was in the Department of Personnel and Training as Deputy Secretary. In the Government of Karnataka, he has served in numerous capacities as well. On the personal front, he takes keen interest in sports and music. He has a professional interest in entrepreneurship, metro rail, telecom, and logistics. And above all, and this I can say with great confidence and authority, that he's a treasure trove of knowledge. You can speak to him on any topic and he will answer you with even more data than what you already have. Welcome, sir. It's truly an honor to have you with us today. So I would like to start by saying, Mr. Sivasailam, that you were, as our president rightly mentioned, instrumental in furthering the cause of SRO, which is a self-regulatory organization. You were very passionate about it. I recall you spoke so eloquently in Calcutta when we were sharing the dais at the CII function on the AMTOI becoming an SRO and how it is the right for it to become an SRO. But unfortunately, it has still not happened. Despite our best efforts, we would like to know from you, why do you think this has not happened? What are the reasons for it?
First of all, let me take over from what Mr. Shantanuji mentioned, that not only have I got the first late Shri P.K. Srivastava award, I am also the first in the AMTOI Master Dialogue. So the AMTOI Dialogues have ended. Now it's AMTOI Master Dialogues, and I'm the first speaker there. So that's also one of the firsts of today. Now, having said that, see, it's not what is it that you're going to achieve in an SRO? Let us assume that what will happen if you don't have an SRO and you still want regulation. Let's put that put it in the public domain and say that we want some form of regulation. None exists. The state is the instrument of regulation. So what should the state do to put in place? That's what will be the natural question to turn to, because state is to do any regulation means people say, okay, state should form the rules. Now, the question which arises in the state, which I have confessed, is that none of us know what to regulate. If you ask the state what is to be regulated in this sector and how it is to be regulated, there is no mechanism, there is no knowledge. So it's going to be hit and trial. And in that hit and trial, we may hit the wrong thing. So there is no body of knowledge available today to organize any form of regulation. Even the knowledge about regulation should come from the practitioners only. So please take it that if you are expecting the state to do a regulation, we may regulate the wrong thing, or the state may regulate the wrong thing with the wrong rules and destroy whatever benefits we have. And that's not a good thing at all. So the situation prevailing now is that even let us say that even 30 years later, you would like to have an omnibus regulation. Even to have an omnibus regulation by the state, let us say 30 or 50 years later, we need to have a body of knowledge on what to regulate and how. And that's where the SRO experience is so vital, and you cannot undo or do away with or undermine the need for knowledge about the regulation itself. And who is in the best position to do it? The best position to do it is among the industry itself, to say that these are areas we need to regulate. We can self-regulate. That's the greatest thing to happen. And tomorrow, if the thing widens to become, let us say, cross-border, then these SRO experiences available for the state to know how to regulate, so that somebody, the local trade is not short-shrifted.
Sir, allow me to
strongly advise that SRO is a thing which needs to be done.
Yes.
Why it is not yet done?
That's
if
the
you're
key.
going to wait if you're going to wait for it, it's unlikely to happen because nobody knows how to do it. They can give you a framework legislation, which is there in the draft, but nobody can tell you how to regulate. If I can only tell you one thing, if you can enter an area like dispute resolution and show such results which you have done in 1 year, which was also, which we discussed it together with SRO, and in the dispute resolution front, you have made such progress where there is a huge institutional structures, regulatory structures existing, and still you were successful. I think it's time for AMTOI and its members to start the SRO on its own. And when a situation arises, to say, yes, we have this regulation and experience is also available for this regulation. So nothing should stop AMTOI with its success in such a difficult area as dispute resolution. If you have succeeded in that, SRO is a thing which you should go ahead, and members will wholeheartedly support it, because it is one of the main things which an SRO does, apart from dispute resolution, which is only one aspect of it. It ensures that the businesses are accountable to its customers, and that accountability is set in the SRO exercise. So you will be doing a great favor to and increasing the business, make it much more credible, make it much more objective, make it much more definitive by starting this SRO exercise. It's to be done yesterday. That's my view.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We definitely will take it up in the new term as well. So my next revert to you, and you're passionate about it, so am I. The pandemic has taught us that digitization is no longer a fad or a luxury or a new concept. It is a necessity. Most of our processes are getting digitized. The whole freight market is getting digitized. Everything is virtual. I miss the human interaction, the human touch, but that's my personal opinion. What is your take of digitization in the logistics industry? Where do you see it going? Do you see any players which will actually go away eventually? Any stakeholder group which will eventually have to just die a natural death?
See, it is this fear which is preventing digitization. In fact, your businesses will increase manifold with digitization, and that's my view. And I have strong reasons to say this. Today, a lot of businesses are not taking place because I just don't have the access to to provide that sort of the documentation to help somebody to develop the original documentation which I would want. Transmit it, provide the access to this, and develop it in the manner in which it is acceptable to a whole spate of regulators who come just after my product leaves my factory. Now, the technology is there, and that is the blockchain technology. If and what will dictate the survival of the institution is whether you are in blockchain or not. If you are not in blockchain technology, the whole not only that the services will not be as efficient as it could be provided, but a whole lot of concept of multimodalism which we are talking about. The concept of multimodalism itself is based on common documentation. If you are going to have multiple documentation, the split, it will ensure splitting across in as many forms as you want. Every person will insist on his own documentation. But if you are insisting, if you are ensuring that you have got common documentation, which digitization and blockchains provide, you are ensuring multimodalism as a way, as a preferred mode rather than as an exceptional mode. And I would go to the extent of submitting that the adoption of digitalization and digitization in the logistics trade is the way to expand the reach of logistics trade. Today, you are just, we would be just assisting those who know us. Tomorrow, we will become market makers. We will be ensuring, we will be creating new markets because we know the access. And we know, we also know where it is to go. So we also know the destinations. So the whole lot of business will get built. And let us be very clear about one thing. Logistics is not virtual business. It is real business. Ultimately, goods needs to move from one place to another. I mean, when I say food, food has to move to the shops. I mean, then only I can buy it. So you cannot have virtual food. So I don't think that the days are on as yet. But as long as we are in the business of goods, movement of goods, something which is very, very important for trade is access, sourcing. And how do you make a sourcing point as also an access as the delivery point? And those are all aspects which can come only by multimodalism, which can only be facilitated by digitalization and digitization. They are two different concepts, but it's not too difficult to understand them. One is relating to the applications of technology, and another is to the automation within the industry itself. But both are important in my view, and that's the way forward. Nobody need to fear. There will be more businesses. Existing businesses will increase manifold. There are many unserved areas even in our own country. And if you are asking for international, there are many more unserved areas outside as well. So that's the way to go forward, and nobody need to be. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised that you will get a lot of niche players on the ground, because ultimately logistics is local business, and somebody needs to be there locally in order to service the customer.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. That gives us some ray of hope for the future as well. So this is a contentious question which I'm going to ask you, which many of my fellow members feel very passionately about. I'm going to ruffle some feathers, but what is your opinion on the current freight scenario? You see, we have seen that today the shipping lines are rightfully so. For 10 years or 15 years, they have seen some very rough waters. But today what we are seeing is akin to, profits which have been unheard of even in our wildest imagination, equal to the largest tech companies in the world. And it's a good thing. We like it when people make money, of course, but it's not percolating probably down the chain to everyone as well. And what is your opinion? Is it good? Is this a good development for all the stakeholders? Is this going to sustain for long? What is your take on this?
The if you're asking me, how about freight rates? You know my view on that. I have articulated it in your forum. I articulated it publicly as well. I'm not happy with the high freight rates, even when it was there in the ordinary times. I do believe that India deserved a better freight rate even under normal times. So obviously, I cannot be a champion for high freight rates today. Certainly not. But what is the good thing and what is the good thing is that I don't expect it to continue. So to that extent, let me be, it's going to be a hyper short-term phenomenon to the best of my knowledge.
How short? When do you see the downward trend starting, according to you?
I do expect it year 22, 23 onwards, maybe April onwards.
April onwards.
6 to 8 months down the line. But bigger countries like India should be able to get it even faster. And that is where we need to get our act together. We need to sit with the shipping lines. It's possible for us to do so because they're all bullish on India. That now one thing about the shipping lines with which we deal with in India is that all of them are bullish about India, and they're willing to make investments in India. And that is the test of knowing whether they are willing to do business in India. So it is possible for us to work with them, and over the period of, let us say, 4 to 6 months, ensure that a quicker turnaround is something which we can organize. You did mention about container related issues. It's possible for AMTOI, as the when we are talking about SRO, you can consider yourself to be the canalizing agency for containers. If liquor can be canalized, and I was its head in Karnataka. If liquor can be canalized, containers can also be canalized.
For the benefit of our audience, emphasize what canalization exactly is.
In the sense that it's just that when the containers come in, somebody tracks it and ensures that its availability is assured. First of all, in India, we are such a big importer and exporter. We can always ensure that the container is made available. Today, the problem is the lack of knowledge about containers creates an artificial cost raise for containers. So, this issue, I addressed it almost to the day, maybe March of 2020, when we were in Coimbatore, where the issue of container mismatch came, and the container which was there 100 kilometers away, we imported containers from Dubai. So the exporters and importers ended up paying. Importer paid for the container to come in, and the exporter paid for the container to go out. So this is the lack of information about it is actually costing customers heavily. And I consider this to be an AMTOI function. I consider this to be a freight forwarder function. And once this information is available publicly to the freight forwarders, it becomes like a container market in India. So any container market in India, if it is online, so people will book the containers. And if the container has to go out, we can always ensure that the container goes out before its grace period in India ends. And we will always try to ensure that it moves out quickly, because it's not necessary that I mean, we need when we talk about ethical businesses, we also need to ensure in this process that shipping lines which keep our containers in this country are not short shrifted. They also need to be. We need to provide them the best possible access and use of their containers with right to them. For example, if they want to take it to, let us say, an empty container out of India quickly, we should be facilitating that. We shouldn't be telling, no, you keep it for 6 months and things like that. So I would favor an open regime. and in which the AMTOI as an institution plays the honest platform, and with the result, people can book on it. They know where the container is. If something has to be brought from abroad, we quickly bring it. But if it is available, say 50 kilometers away, we use those containers. And because the containers is not a ordinary commodity. There are various types of containers which are required for different purposes. It's not that I mean, it's not like what people think, that one container can be used for almost any product. There are also classification of containers, and a particular product requires a particular type of container. If it's available locally, we should be facilitating it, and that's a facilitative work, honest facilitative work of the multimodal institution, and AMTOI being an association of all freight forwarders, including shipping lines who are partners in this. We should be bringing them on board and doing this for them. As regards the freight rates, I think it is possible for us to negotiate and tell them, for example, if they're going to keep the ship for 4 days or 5 days, well, somebody has to pay the costs, isn't it? So we can always work with our partners in the ports to ensure that our containers are ready, loaded containers are ready, and the shipping lines are facilitated. I don't think we should get into a blame game of telling that we are more we are more honest and the others are not, and the others are less honest. I think that is a zero-sum game or a negative-sum game. But we can always work with them and get it thick. And my experience of working with the partners in the logistics space is that transparent projection of pain points has always yielded results, and results in a manner which has addressed it considerably. So I would like to follow this approach with the shipping lines, mainly because they're all highly bullish about India, and we should get them to say that this is the time, you please help us. And we are also there as an institution, as a community of people to work with you and ensure that this is a win-win sum for all of you. Yes, we need to stay with the shipping lines during their.
So all stakeholders have to be what you call taken care of and be happy on it.
Yes, there has to be. It's not. I mean, we shouldn't get the worst thing which we can do is to get into a blame game.
No, of course.
And the best thing which we can do is to create transparency in businesses, and ensure that these things are facilitated. And I'm a great advocate for this, knowing the community with which, and it's a very closed community, and they are all receptive to each other's pain points. And that's what will provide the solution, and not. And there is no need to get into what I would call an adversarial relationship against each of the partners in this business.
Thank you, sir. So thank you. We have a little paucity of time, so I'm just going quickly on to the next question. Is how do you forecast the industry overall, generally in the worldwide scenario for the next 1 year? In a quick snapshot, could you tell us what was your take on it?
See, changes, there are going to be a lot of changes. And the persons who are going to be first off on building what I would call platforms for support are going to take are going to run away with the business. Because, for example, if I can send anything from a remote village right up to, let us say, Amsterdam, and somebody can manage it for me, and those businesses are likely to quickly see the light of the day, maybe by the time in 8 to 9 months. And if we do not do that, we will be left behind and we will be operating on foreign platforms. And that will be a terrible situation for us to find ourselves in. So I would strongly recommend that this year is going to be the era of mainstreaming multimodalism. And if you're going to do that multimodalism, the first prerequisite, I'm not even before we talk about multimodalism, the first prerequisite is people should be able to come on common platforms and interact. Because see, you cannot have a rail fellow owning trucks. You cannot have truck fellow owning trains. So everybody, it is fashionable to speak about integration, but these are all different modes. The idea is addressing the interface problems rather than trying to say that I will coordinate everything. Air and road also will have coordination, but you cannot tell that the air fellow should own the trucking company. So the idea is to provide for that interfaces, and interfaces are best provided by multimodal institutions, the institutions developing multimodalism like AMTOI. I don't think in India we have the institutions which are addressing it as strongly as AMTOI is. And I think the time for AMTOI to push through this concept has definitely arrived.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We'll definitely take that into consideration. And thank you for the advice. So on the personal, going on the personal front a little bit now, you speak very passionately about digitization and tech. Your son is also has a very successful startup. I heard, not in our industry, somewhere else, but it has done very well. You've got some big marquee investors with you on his platform. Could you share in a little nutshell with our audience what that is all about? I believe your retirement plan is already done and set, thanks to him.
The thing is that, see, he is a first-time entrepreneur in the family. So as a person who has never seen entrepreneurship, and I know it's how I have always valued entrepreneurship and I have always respected it. And to be very frank with you, in my entire life as a civil servant, I have not given employment to more than 2 people. And it has always been part-time employment. Today, when I see my son employ 110 people, and even during the COVID time, they were all paid their full salaries because the business actually boomed during COVID time. So I feel that this is what makes the India of today different from the India in which I grew, and I made a career in the civil service. It's passionate. The important thing is, one thing which I have always also told him about this entire AMTOI group, I have told him everybody there is a business, and they do very ethical businesses. And therefore, it is possible in India. It's not that what we often read in the papers or see in the movies, that businesses are unethical and they can be. Yes, there can be black sheep everywhere, but a lot of businesses, majority of, a country cannot be built on unethical practices and unethical things. And ethics is something which I have always looked at AMTOI and also given him. And of course, he's doing well.
But which sector is this in, sir?
Investors with him. And the type of valuations which he has seen, I don't think it'll take me more than 100 lifetimes to do that.
Thank you, sir. We wish him all the very best. We wish him, I'm sure it'll be a great success. And your future is secure. Your retirement future is secured, I think.
Yeah, that I still live within my pension, so I have no problem.
No, I think you'll live very lavishly thanks to him.
No, that's one thing which I would, what you don't learn at 5, you don't learn at 50, So I'm quite happy with what I have. And my day is kept busy with people like you, and I keep working them. If I see somebody succeed, and if I work for that success, that provides me the happiness for the day. And if they succeed more, more happiness for me. And that's the end of it.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. I actually thank you very much. But I see that I personally finished my questions, but there are some very interesting, really interesting questions on the panel, which I will now shoot off to you.
Okay.
Thank you very much once again. So we have a question from Sudhir Gupta. Do forwarders, I think I already asked you, do forwarders have to be insecure? Rates are going sky high. Shippers are dealing the payments, which is happening. It's really a bad time for most of the forwarders, except for the big guns. So what is your advice to them, sir? Since you're running short of time, I have to request you to shorten answers if possible.
The point is, it is possible to negotiate with them. It's possible to negotiate with them. If some restructuring is there, see, what is bothering them is the uncertainty. Once you know about the certainty, it is possible to manage it. It's also one way by which I did see one important thing which we had only discussed, but I think AMTOI has also gone and implemented it. You remember it was mentioned that guarantees have been provided on behalf of. This was one of the things I remember having discussed with Badkamkarji right when I came, as to why, as an institution, why are you only meeting? I still remember the dialogue. I mean, why are you only meeting? Why don't you provide them a guarantee? And it has been done, and what an achievement it is. Now, those are the types of support structures which freight forwarders require. Like something like the next stage to go is factoring without recourse, because it is possible for the bank to manage a quarter payment delay or a 2-quarter payment delay. So, and they can always factor it in. But for a freight forwarder to factor that in may not be possible. So I would say that once you have told that you're willing to give guarantee to your people, the next step is on the financial side to have a bank to provide the factoring support. Factoring, we unfortunately in this country, I remember we used factoring in the industrial sector, when the factoring has to be actually used in the trade sector. And that's where I think somebody like AMTOI, and it's for its members, you can always have a factoring thing, and I'm pretty certain that the AMTOI team will look into it, especially when you have taken those things seriously and you say that it's done, guarantees are done. And I was found that it is just one statement, and I was amazed that one statement does not tell how much value there is to it.
A lot of effort has gone behind that one statement.
Obviously, the smaller the statement getter. But the same thing, let us assume, as Sudhirji mentioned, if we could provide him the factoring support, he would not have asked, he would not have been in this pain point, which he is. And the point is, he doesn't need to be in that pain point, because his pain point is coming at the cost of his supporting some other customer. Somebody is paying, somebody is losing out because Mr. Gupta is not able to provide that support. It's not that the person who has taken the benefit has taken the benefit. The person whom he has to support cannot get Gupta's assistance, and that is where. And in a business like freight forwarding, if you are not able to provide support, the loser is the exporter importer. Let us be very clear, because he knows nothing. The exporter importer, here is a repository of knowledge sitting on this in this trade, which is unable to help me.
Correct.
So I am the loser.
Absolutely right. So now next, very good question by Sanjay Rane. Indian shipping has been, it's a very passionate subject, and our ex-honorary secretary, Mr. George Abrao, and soon to be office bearer, is also it directly influences him as well. Why has Indian shipping not come to the level of a national line like COSCO or a world-class shipping line? We are an institution. We have Mr. P.K. Srivastava, who built SCI, was instrumental in bringing it to what it is. And we have seen today a Navratna, frankly, not what it used to be.
I have answered this question. This question has been specifically asked to me by Mr. Badkamkar for the AMTOI News, and I have answered this. And I have specifically stated this. And I think this question, we owe an answer for this question to Mrs. Srivastava as well. a nation's what I would call external trade varchasva, if I can, only the Hindi term makes it correct, varchasva. Trade varchasva comes from shipping. And I know the time of 1999 because, I must share, since Madam Kalpana ji shared this thing, I must say, Madam Kalpana ji, I must have gone to Shipping Corporation of India office at 36 Janpat, up to number of times, because my father used to work for State Trading Corporation. And that time in the 90s, when Sir was the chairman of executive director of Shipping Corporation of India, my father was the executive director of State Trading Corporation at that time, and they used to have bulk export of edible oil and all those stuff, and Shipping Corporation used to be the main thing. And I also managed to meet some people. Shipping Corporation has been familiar, and you had two companies in the same building. I think Shipping Corporation in the 3rd floor and STC in the 10th floor of 36 Janpat. Now, what happens is these big companies are important, and I call them, in the context of regulatory and liberalization, there needs to be something like a public sector comparator. I will give you an example of telecom regulation. As long as BSNL, MTNL were powerful, telecom regulation was powerful. If you have seen the slackening of telecom regulation over the last 5 years, it's largely on account of the fact that BSNL, MTNL have slumped. So when you are looking at international scenarios and oligopolistic issues, that is what Badkamkar ji says, that how do you manage oligopolies? The natural answer is regulation. But beyond regulation, you also require, mere regulation will not make goods move from one end to another end. You require somebody to do it, and somebody to do it profitably, because otherwise the business will not function. So therefore, I'm a great votary of this concept of public sector comparator. As long as Shipping Corporation was there, Indian shipping actually flourished, because there used to be something called a public sector comparator. And they could ensure that policies are made, because a shipping corporation, it is just like a shipping corporation MD was more powerful than the shipping secretary. Let me tell you that. There's no prizes for guessing. It's just like, it's a Shipping Corporation of India CMD who mattered in India. Just like the STC chairman was virtually the commerce secretary. He decided how, and he directly dealt with these matters.
If I can interrupt, sir, the basic contention is that I think what everyone wants to know in a nutshell is that, look at Costco today, being a government-owned company, is in the top 10 lines, in fact, the top 5 now in the world. SCI is nowhere. For that matter, neither is any other Indian. We've seen Varun Shipping going down the drain. We've seen going down. We have seen so many of these companies which were institutions at one time. So just the question as to why, that I think is the crux of the matter.
The simplest answer is, in the initial stages, I think that correction has been made. I think with the GST corrections coming through with 5%, and 5% on the shipping price would be considerable. That's one. Secondly, bottoms, use of bottoms. Ship cannot come back free. So in a country like India, if you're able to ensure return cargo or onboard cargo, one-way cargo, that is one thing where, which recently, I think I was also part of that, developing that was one of my last assignments, where we worked to get at least the 30 to 35% of the oil cargo onto the Indian bottoms. But the issues have got to do with investments. Issues have got to do with our own support to trade. For example, if there are shipping companies backing in our memberships, what are we doing to support them? I don't say that you need to support them by giving them extra price over what you would pay, but you convey your thing that, well, these are preferred shipping line to take things forward. There are some small issues which as AMTOI, it's possible to do. Why don't we have gateway ports? Why are we ensuring that a ship comes to Sri Lanka and then tranships to India? We pay $100 each way. $200 can be saved if it can come to Cochin and then we evacuate it. We don't mind. We don't mind paying extra to our local handlers. Let them get a $50 more. That doesn't matter. But why don't we arrive at these sort of compromises and then say, okay, I'll start giving you $50 more, but I will phase it out over 5 years. And it is possible for the AMTOI team with its tremendous partnership networks to get these done. That's my favorite thing. You have the network to do it. It's possible, but I'm pretty certain that the realization has come that that if India needs to do better in its trade, it needs to have a certain control over shipping lines. Now, an example of US is already given. Shantanuji is aware that they say US without its own shipping lines, it started off Vanderbilt, all of them are gone now, but it's still powerful. That's because they have got an extraterritorial legislation. And one of the objectives of the multimodal transport bill, if I can say so, if I'm not to this thing, is to provide, it will provide India with an option for an extraterritorial legislation. And that's the way to go about. As otherwise, we will always be, you will always have this complaint maybe 10 years later when we speak. So therefore, a multimodal transport bill which provides an option, I don't say it should be done or exercised. It need not be. As long as we can get business as one of negotiation, as long as we can get things by negotiation, we should always be doing it. And it's possible to do it. You don't require regulation for everything, and you certainly don't require extraterritorial legislation. But should it come in a highly crisis situation, we should be able to have its teeth. Just like you have something like manufacture of vaccines avoiding TRIPS patent. I mean, those types of waivers. That's all is there to it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I think you have engrossed the audience so well that we have multiple questions, but we have paucity of time. I think we'll have to have another session with you for a quick Q&A session, just off-site chat. Mr. President, do we conclude, or would you, because there are some questions and I think we have overshot our time limits, so my apologies for that. What would you...
I think Mr. Sivasailam can take 3 questions, because I will ask one question and with observations on what he suggested. And you can club Deepak's and Afzal's question and he can answer all of them together. Okay. Sir, we have kind of clairvoyance. I am not a believer of supernatural. But I can tell you, we are discussing, AMTOI has created what we call as strategic stakeholder boards, which are organizations that are outside the logistics sector, like banks, insurance company, IT companies. So one of the initiatives there is discussing with banks, factoring, but our condition is the customer should be liable for payment and not us. And we want to structure on those lines. Otherwise, there are too many delinquent customers in India.
Yes, you are right. You are right. The recourse should be to the customer and not to the facilitator. You are right. I'm with you on that. There's no, I'm not having any doubts. But the point is, the facilitation should come from the AMTOI structuring.
Yes, that's precisely what we are doing, and we have excellent response from all the stakeholders. Sir, it will be music to your ears that NASSCOM has engaged with us very actively, and none less than their vice president has been interacting with us.
Wow.
And we want to have a dialogue with them for innovation in logistics sector and work with the startup. So a topic which is of passion for you, for innovation in our sector, how we can have synergy together.
Okay.
So everything you are saying, sir, we have some clairvoyance. We are echoing the sentiment. Even you spoke about monopolizing the infrastructure, and we had a very strong argument on one case. Like, should a private railway or railway be at the hub port, own the rail, and the terminal should be theirs, and it should be only unimodal, that is rail only, and we have objected to it. Like elsewhere in the world, it has to be compulsorily multimodal.
Correct.
Otherwise, from government monopoly, you are creating private monopoly.
Yeah. Government monopoly is bad. Private monopoly is worse.
Even worse.
Yeah.
And government can't be a catalyst for creating private monopoly. So we are strongly objecting to it that it should be not only multimodal infrastructure, it should be seamless multimodal infrastructure.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
See, everyone who has heard Sivasailam sir in the past and just now knows that he doesn't lack passion and he comes with a lot of energy and spirit. Sir, I have one very different question going ahead from the topic, and Zarsis will ask you questions posed by my colleagues Deepak and Afzal, and if there is anyone more, and you can answer all of them together in interest of time. And I promise the members, and I promise you, we will have another session with you, and probably on topics other than logistics. So my question is other than logistics. See, you have worked with various other sectors, and they have been glamorous sectors like alcohol, very glamorous, very intoxicating. You have worked with very glamorous sector like telecommunication. And then at the peak of career, you were with logistics, which is considered to be the most unglamorous. So with your experience as a bureaucrat, as a senior bureaucrat, as a regulator, as a lawmaker, as an administrator, all of this put together, what difference you see in logistics sector? And I am particularly referring to EXIM logistics, not domestic logistics, and other sectors. And what is your experience with them and us, very impartially? And where do we fall short of others in building our brand? So, Zarsis, you may ask other question unless sir wants to address this first and then take other questions.
So I'll address this. See, the problem is we have see, in the EXIM sector, there is something called specialization at every stage. For example, when you're talking about documentation, there is a specialization in it. I mean, let's not wish it away. It's a job of a specialist. And freight forwarders actually come up with the domain knowledge, because if you do something wrong, your product is going to get rejected sometime elsewhere, and with great loss to the people. So there is an expertise involved in it. But what is happening is we are not willing to create the seamless, the word seamless which you used is what is important. For example, at every kink, huge rent-seeking behaviors exist. With the result, our exports are done at the cost of the price, and our imports get so costly that we cannot value add and re-export. Otherwise, a country like India can simply get those imports, value add them and go, because our value add is actually being lost considerably in this in the value addition of multiple what I would call interfaces. In various interfaces we are getting. So one way to do it is to create the seamlessness which is possible through digitalization. Now, how does the freight forwarder interacts with me? I'm the exporter. I only tell my freight forwarder says, okay, no problem, your goods will reach. After that, now the problem with freight forwarder is the freight forwarder is in the lurch. He has to go and beg all this thing. The extent of professionalism at the interfaces is lacking. With the result, the huge expertise which is available in the community is unable to get itself translated as benefit to me. Ultimately, because I need to do it, the add-on costs takes place, and at the end of it, it has to be paid at what I would have got as my price. So I would only request that. I do believe, I do understand that businesses needs to survive, and they need to survive well. There is no doubt about that. And this space, it's not that the exporters are not willing to pay for the services. They are willing to pay for the services, and everybody jolly well pay for the services which professional services which they are taking up. But the point is, asking them to pay for the rent-seeking behaviors where no service is rendered is something which is, I thought, very harsh on our both exporters and our importers, whose costs go up, and they find that they cannot value add and re-export. While I'm on this, I would request AMTOI to take up one major issue, if I can, because you are a very trade related and trade facilitation related community with huge knowledge of this space. I would like you to address one small issue for this nation, which, if done, can make a big impact in 2 years. You will find double-digit growth exponentially for another 5 to 10 years, and that is facilitating what I would call special economic zones or export processing zones. If you can kindly take it up, see, all our SEZs and FTWZs are not what the term indicates. They are all customs bonded warehouses, and that is the greatest problem. I would strongly request you that if you could move the concern, especially our commerce ministers, to say that when we are talking about export-oriented units, the only thing which should regulate them is not customs. Customs will be outside the export processing zone. When a material comes into the export processing zone, it can only be an item or a commodity which is not prohibited in this country, and a manufacture of it is not and such things which is manufactured should not be prohibited in this country. Everything else should be allowed. You will find a huge number of companies making a beeline from China to India, because we have got amongst the longest coastlines in the world.
Sir, I'm sorry. Sir, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. We have to conclude by 6 because we have another ECM meeting. I am extremely sorry that I have to.
I thought my interest and my submission to you will be met if I can enthuse you to take this SEZ concept forward, because it has got the maximum impact on free trade. And I'm willing to submit a paper to you.
Thank you, sir. In fact, we will have a special session because I have to unfortunately disappoint Deepak and Afzal Bhai as well, and Ruben, by not sharing their questions in the view of the paucity of time. Our sincere apologies for that. We will have a special session again, sir. It has been so thought-provoking and what you call an eye-opener to hear you speak so passionately about it, all these various subjects. You have reignited the spark in us, and we thank you for sparing your time. Once again, on behalf of AMTOI, we really thank you. Thank you, and we apologize for cutting the session like this, but we have to stick to the schedule. So over to you, George, for the vote of thanks, please. Thank you, sir, once again. Thank you.